Well, guess what? They won't have to guess after today.
No, they won't.
But the thing is, you're joining me on my last show.
Yes, I am.
So that's cool. That's the cool part.
Breaks my heart in a way, like we say. This does belong to the public, and we are less of a community if we do away with this.
Are you ready, Mike?
Sir, I'm ready anytime you are.
You want to wave at Ken and tell him to get
Ken.
started whenever he wants to get going?
His cameras are off. But,
Let's see.
That one right there.
Where's Ken?
the red light isn't on.
Is he in the production room?
He's giving you thumbs up.
Oh, he's
Thumbs
giving us
up.
thumbs.
Okay,
Okay.
he's ready to go.
Okay. Muy buenas tardes, aquí estamos en el programa La Voz Latina, Enrique Hen González para servirlos en esta tarde, el último programa de La Voz Latina ya se va a terminar este día y vamos a empezar con nuestros amigos Mike Saville, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
One of my producers, Steve Telewelski, thank you for being here.
You bet.
And today the subject is, Mike, you're still running, right? Are you running marathon?
Well, I'm running hard, Hank, and really, I'm honored to be on your last show. I've been on here
Thank
quite
you.
a bit, and I think we've got to know each other pretty well. Go fishing. If
Right.
I ever get over this thing, we'll take the boat out again, and
Exactly.
because we really enjoyed it, and getting to know you guys, and then also just being part and learning things. I mean, you taught me a lot in terms of where to point me in the directions. Like for example, the cable negotiation fees and how that all disappeared and why this program is being discontinued. But yeah, I learned a lot. So where would you like me to begin?
Well, we have questions. Okay, one of the questions that
Right.
I want to.
Can I do something first?
Well, go ahead. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Well, one of the things we had the League of Women Voters.
Oh, go
program,
ahead. Yeah,
And but compared to this program, I mean, it's a great thing. But yeah, 2-minute introduction, 2-minute close, and then 1.5 minutes, and it was about 10 minutes total duration for all of us.
Right.
And they do a great job, and they try to be fair, and they are fair. But it doesn't really give you time to really get to know people like you do on this program. I say you're a Johnny Carson.
Well, thank you.
You are a Johnny Carson format. Johnny Carson had
Mexican type, right? Mexican
Sir,
type.
you speak very good English.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
But you also speak Spanish, and I can understand a bit because I graduated from the Panama Canal Zone. But what I'd like to do is just do this so that I can get this out of the way. This is 2 minutes and 2 minutes.
Yeah, go ahead.
And because I really had to rush through it because of the format.
I forgot to do the obituary real quick.
Oh,
Is
yes,
that
sir.
okay?
Please do that,
I forgot.
please.
I just have to, for all of those that have passed away in Pocatello, Chevik, Fort Hall, and Soda Springs, and all of the communities around Pocatello here in southeastern Idaho, we want to have a minute of silence for all of your friends, your relatives here on La Voz Latina, something that we've done now for the last maybe 25 years. We'll take a minute of silence for anybody that may have passed away.
My cousin, Steve Saville.
Steve Saville.
Yes, he passed away age 67.
Okay, 67. Robert, do you have anybody in your community that you know?
I don't have anybody that's passed away recently.
Okay, and all I know is that Mr. Jensen, the camera man for Idaho State Journal that passed away back in 2001, I guess, we'll remember him, but it's been a while, but he used to work with me. So a minute of silence for everybody that's passed away in our community, Pocatello, Chubbuck, Fort Hall, Montpelier, here in southeastern Idaho. Okay, and we're back. Okay, you got the floor.
Showtime, eh?
Showtime, buddy.
Okay. Well, what I want to mention a little bit about my cousin, but I'll do this in.
Oh yeah, go
later.
ahead. Yeah, you bet.
This is what I did for the voters, League of Women Voters, and I'll just read it because it was really kind of disjointed.
By the way, Catalina Speckbauer said that you did a real good job there.
Oh.
She said
Well, you never know that when you're up on the dais, you know.
Yeah. She said you did really, really well.
I'm doing my best to get elected.
Yeah.
Everything that I say, and anything that I've done.
Well, she said you were really organized in what you presented.
Okay,
So,
well, but people have to understand that anything that I said to anybody out there, it doesn't mean a thing if I don't get elected. I mean,
True.
and that's it. So then, it's retirement or whatever. But I'm working very hard as I can to get there. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. My name is Mike Saville. I was born and raised here in Idaho, Pocatello with my grandmother on a farm in Grace with foster parents. I joined my dad, who was career U.S. Air Force, and at age 10 moved to Illinois, then to Augusta, Georgia, then to the Panama Canal Zone. I graduated high school in Panama, joined the U.S. Air Force. After training, I was stationed at Spangdahlem, Germany for 3 years. Besides my electronics tech job, I worked part-time on weekends at an Armed Forces television station for 2 years. After discharge, I returned to Pocatello, was hired by IBM. I applied it quick.
right. Quick radio first.
Yeah. And married Rochelle Clark. I have 3 kids, 4 grandkids, and 2 great-grandkids. We've been married 50 years this year.
Well,
And,
congratulations.
yeah, she called me up for a blind date.
Did she?
Yes, she did.
All right.
And
Did she bring another gal?
No, I asked her how she knew me because I didn't know her, and she said she knew my mother.
Oh, okay.
And I said, well, what do you look like? She says, well, you'll have to take your chances. And so we went to a church outing. It was Walther League, and in an 18, and it was this beautiful redhead, and I'm a sucker for redheads.
Oh.
And so anyway, we married 18
So
months.
you like
later.
Lucy too, huh?
I don't know what it was, but she stole my heart. You know,
All right. All right.
I was a field engineer fixing data processing IBM machines in southeastern Idaho. Some of my accounts were FMC, Simplots, ISU, Union Pacific Railroad, Farm Bureau, and Farmers Insurance. After 10 years, IBM asked me to be a manager. They required a move to Rochester, Minnesota at an IBM plant for management development. Plus I learned the business and new products and that sort of thing. I was actually had a part in the making sure that we could fix the machine.
Right.
I transferred to Los Angeles as an IBM field manager with responsibilities to such accounts as Lockheed, Universal City Studios, Paramount Pictures, insurance companies, and Beverly Hills lawyers with pink waiting rooms. It was incredible. You know, pink kind of mellows you out, and I guess that was
Right.
the purpose behind it. But yeah,
Well,
it was, yeah.
It mellows men out.
I don't know what it was, but I had never been into a pink office before. I just, you know,
I bet it didn't mellow you out.
Well, when I was down in Arizona, this sheriff down there, he dressed everybody in the underwear in pink, so they wouldn't steal it. You know, and I thought it was,
Whoa.
he was quite a character. And he says, you can have any meal you want as long as it's bologna and bread. You know,
No kidding.
He said, you have to have, if you want TV, he said, I got to give you TV, so he put it on a religious program and only one channel, you know. So he was kind of, it was a funny presentation. This was about 15 years ago, and I was down there. But anyway, after 7 years, and by the way, I had a 3-hour commute every day. Over the first 20 miles was in 20 minutes, and then I had to go over the Sepulveda Pass, which was an hour and 10 minutes to get into the Los Angeles basin. My office was on the Wilshire Corridor in the Arco building. I had a nice view of the top of roofs and that sort of thing. But right down the street from the Ambassador Hotel. The Ambassador Hotel is where Robert Kennedy was killed, murdered. And the manager, and he brought me down in January. And Minnesota was 20 below zero, and he brings me to Los Angeles, and it's 85 degrees. He says, would you like a job here? And I said, oh, man. You know, and I'm in the Ambassador Hotel right across from the Brown Derby, and then, the celebrities, you see all the movies, and it was kind of exciting, and really the weather was very nice. But boy, what a tough operation that was. And they didn't put everybody in there. The 3 years in Rochester, Minnesota was prepare me for that. because the average, if you weren't prepared, you couldn't make it in a year or 2 years or 3 years. I was there 7.
Wow.
And it was family issues, and so IBM transferred me back to Salt Lake City, and paid my way and everything, and then I retired after 32 years as a specialist. But I still needed a job. I was hired by Thrivent Financial. It was called Aid Association for Lutherans, a nonprofit to provide financial services to about 1,000 clients. I had 1,000 people over 13 years. And one of the unique things is we were faith-based. Okay, so when my clients ranged from everyone that was not Lutheran, for example, an LDS family that one of the family members or spouses was a Lutheran, they married an LDS person. And then they had an insurance policy that was from their childhood. It probably paid $5 a month. And so I met a cross-section of people, and a lot of people, which makes it a little different because you didn't go after the money because you had to service all these people of different income levels, anything from being, below the poverty level on up. But that was what I did, and to help them also raise, help them with their financial goals, education, and insurance, disability. I had 12 product lines, and that was the hard part. But Hank, I worked 300 hours for about 18 months to learn it, because most of it was learning curve, and then later on.
Well, you learned good, I'll tell you one thing. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I didn't know what I was doing. I told this story. I said, after 6 months, I called them up on the phone because I was isolated. It was like my own business, and the manager was in Colorado, and I called him up and I says, I'm here. I hadn't heard from him, and I was out meeting people, and I said, yeah, we know you're there. He says, well, how am I doing? He says, you're doing great. I said, but I don't know what I'm doing. They said, well, keep doing what you don't know what you're doing because your numbers look great.
Oh, man.
Yeah, but after, and I'm not bragging. It's just an accomplishment. I needed to replace the income that I lost by retiring early at IBM, and I was Rookie of the Year out of 5 states.
Oh.
Yeah, there was 25 new hires, and they said that I had, it was a numbers thing, and plus a management discretion.
By the way, this message is for the League of Women Voters?
Yeah, this is the thing.
Okay.
I went more than 2 minutes because I interjected a little into it. So let me read on here. I was hired by Thrivent Financial, a nonprofit, to provide financial services to about 1,000 clients over 13 years. I learned a lot about money investment. Rochelle and I built a home in McCammon starting in 2007 and fully retired in 2013. I've been in volunteer community service organizations since the 1970s, starting with the junior chamber here in Pocatello with Greg Anderson. He was president.
Oh, yeah.
I was a recording secretary. And lastly, as a national vice president through the seniors group. I have a Bachelor of Science degree, paid half by IBM and half by me, and I have no debt. And that was a 3.5-year program through the University of Phoenix. And I was still working 60 hours a week. But that was an excellent program for me as a working adult. We've toured about 16 countries recently, Europe and Pacific and Asia, China, Russia, Australia. I was asked to run for the Idaho Senate by a legislator, and I accepted the challenge. And as a U.S. Air Force veteran, IBM Technical and Management, Financial Services, World Travel, and Community Service leadership roles, I think this experience has given me the skills to be one of the 35 Idaho senators and to represent Ledge 28. So that was my 2-minute spiel, but I added a little bit to it,
Right.
A little color.
Okay.
At the end, they had various questions on things, and I'll go over some of those. This is the final. On the campaign trail, I've met and listened to hundreds of people at various venues. My main concern was, why is it the neighbors' children go to school 4 days a week, about a 12-hour day, and single moms and parents have to buy daycare for about $2,000 annually for each child? My conclusion is the Idaho GOP has starved education with continuous tax cuts that benefit the 21,000 millionaires and 1 billionaire. I researched and discovered that in 2006, then Governor Risch cut property taxes statewide by 3 mills, that's 0.003%, and raised sales taxes from 5 cents to 6 cents. That was a 20% increase.
Yeah, and you said it was a tax shift.
It was a tax shift, obviously, from folks that have high property values, lots of property, expensive homes. They got the biggest cut. And to everybody else, seniors and everybody else that pays sales tax, especially low income. It's a regressive tax. Sales tax has always been a regressive tax. The guy making $1 million a year doesn't pay near as much. He pays more money, but as far as percentage of income, versus lower income people. You know, they might pay 7% of their total take-home pay for the sales tax, whereas the other guy, the millionaire, he pays 0.00001% in sales tax.
Yeah, you're right. It was a tax shift. You know, hey, I can see it now.
Right.
Thanks for explaining that. Thanks.
And the tax shift, the result was Marsh Valley School District state funding fell from $980,000 annually to $32,000. So over the last 12 years, they couldn't make up the $12 million.
And here they're talking about always keeping education #1 here in Idaho. And I've heard that from legislators, but boy, they're not doing it.
That's correct. And here again, Hank, you know, I follow the numbers, and I have that ability. The numbers speak loudly for itself. You know, number 49th in the country, and at 60, well, let's just say 7,000, whereas the average in Idaho is 11. In the nation is 11,000. And Idaho is way undertaxed, and compared to other supportive services. In fact, at the forum, I think Senator Nye said that it was $700 million under where it should be to support, you know, the services in the state that normal states do in Idaho. You can't continually cut taxes all the time. I mean, half of the taxes that you're collected is used for education, $1.8 billion. It sounds like a great thing. And what the GOP uses is percentages. And, we're raising it 7%. I use an illustration, is that when, say you're $16,000 per child,
Okay.
what's 7% of that? Well, $750, let's say, right? I'm just going from memory. But if you're spending $7,000 per child, 7% of that is $230. Now, right, 7 times that is, whatever, $210. So the only thing is, who's going to have more money for gas? Because the gas in Wyoming is the same price as it is here. The groceries in Wyoming are the same price here. All the utilities are the same. So it's really, quite frankly, so underfunded. And I've talked to, as far as Governor Otter is concerned, you know, he wants to privatize everything. Privatize. And so it's really, let me finish this and then I'll go expand, okay? Over the last 12 years in a rural community with a low tax base that is true in about 20 school districts, the districts have had to resort to austerity measures. That's the 4 days a week. And 12 hours a day. I mean, you know, I went to Emerson School down here, and, you know, I was home at 3:30, and, you know, we had time to play. When do these kids have time to play? They're catching the bus at 6:45 in the morning. So you can imagine they're getting up at about 5:45 in the morning.
And you're right.
The series of Idaho GOP governors do not support public education, and I don't mind saying it, and the number 49 ranking nationally of per pupil spending speaks louder than any speech by any governor. It's been the series of GOP governors from Risch. You know, I went back to Risch when he did this, and even Mr. Otter. I began to sense that much of the community's ability to negotiate fees and managements were taken away through legislation. Cable franchise fees, Greenbelt bike pass eminent domain.
Right.
That's nonsense. Who did that? It was started in 2011 and by Mr. Guthrie in the Senate and Miss Perry in the House, and they worked for 4 years and got her done.
Yep.
And you know what the reason both of them gave was the Idaho was property rights.
Right.
Okay.
I remember hearing that.
Yeah, property rights. So then you have the Idaho Property Rights Coalition.
Did you hear that, Steve? Did you hear about that too?
Yeah, there was 33 of these folks, and who are the coalition? Simplots, Monsanto, Idaho Power, Rocky Mountain Power, the Farm Bureau Federation, right?
Right.
And this thing called Idaho Freedom Foundation. That's what pushed through that felony trespass law. 3 felonies. 3 trespasses in 10 years and 1 felony that's a $5,000 fine plus 5 years in jail. Possible. Okay. Well, let me go on. Felony trespass home exemptions, $100,000 home exemptions. I talked to the assessor and they said, "Why are you doing that? You're taking away the ability." They fixed it at $100,000. Nobody knew about it. Mr. Guthrie knew about it. They said, "That's what we're going to do." Okay.
Well, Guthrie knows a lot of them because he's introduced some of them.
That's correct. The tariffs. You know, the tariffs, they had a thing over there. The county commissioners called all the, Kelly Packer and Armstrong and Guthrie, and they all said, "What's with the tariffs with Mr. Trump? Why is it going on?" Well, What do you do if you don't want to raise the debt and have anything? You know, you do in a two-step phase. Well, first of all, you give the tax cut to the corporations of 1.5 trillion, right? So how's he going to make up that revenue without going to Congress to increase it? Well, he can do it with tariffs. And what happens to that $400 TV at Costco? Now you're going to pay $500. Where's that extra $100 go? It goes right into the U.S. Treasury. If you follow the money from tariffs go right in the U.S. Treasury, and in my opinion, is to replace that tax cut of 18%, that to 1.5 trillion. Now there was
another tax shift.
Yes.
Another tax shift.
Another tax shift on a national level. Well, you know, when Goldman Sachs, when we had the meltdown in 2008, Hank Paulson was this former CEO of Goldman Sachs, and Goldman Sachs, they have a motto, and it's 60,000 employees. There's books on it. Goldman Sachs rules the world. They have a motto in their book that says, when we make money, somebody loses money. And remember, I mean, you only have finite money, right? And they don't print anything, but they take whatever. When we make money, the other guys lose money. And that's the stock market and everything else when you really get down to it. I mean, it's not created, like you said, out of the air. But anyway, right now, he did that. He orchestrated the meltdown, and it was amazing. He came in after 18 months that he was in there. That's when Lehman Brothers went out of business. And by the way, he had $750 million in stock, but because he became the U.S. Treasurer, it was all tax-free.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. When you come out of the commercial or the corporate sector, when you go into government, yeah, they have these special perks. It's kind of like the same perks that Orrin Hatch had for 48 years. You fly on corporate jets from round trip from Washington to Salt Lake City, and he pays $1,500, and the cost for that trip is $18,000 in a private jet.
Wow.
Of course, he has a lobbyist sitting next to him, and the reason I found that out is because I got tired of taking my belts and my shoes off when I went to the airport in Salt Lake City.
Oh yeah.
And I complained to the PSA guy or the TSA guy, and I said, "Does Orrin Hatch take his shoes off and his belt?" Well, I'm holding up my pants, right?
Right.
He says, "Oh no." I said, "Well, why doesn't he?" He says, "Because he goes over to airport number 2, the private, and lands there all the time. And the perk that the senators have, and I guess the senators have, is they just call up IBM, Intel, Exxon, or whatever, and says, 'Hey, you got a flight going to Salt Lake?'"
By the way, do they have that for the senators here too?
No, but the senators here have $1,020 monthly medical insurance.
Okay.
And they have also considered full-time employees for PERSE, retirement program.
Retire.
Yeah,
Really?
they're considered full-time employees.
Did you know that, Steve?
I thought they were part-time employees.
They are part-time employees as far as $17,000 a year, but the perk that's come along with the job is the PERSE and also that $1,020 monthly health care insurance policy.
Can you imagine that?
Yes,
You
we
had
can. Enrique, politicians have been ripping off this country for a long time.
Well, I hate to tell you, this is all public information. What I'm sharing with you is not hearsay. And I put it on my Facebook, and I publish what the source is. I can't boost anything with it, but really, unless the reporter is lying, like the Statesman or the Post-Register, unless they're lying, then all I'm doing is sharing the information, and that's what I'm sharing with you. I have a tendency to remember a lot of things because you got to remember I was trained about a month or 30 days on average at IBM for 25 years, and you had to remember things because it was just part of it. And you develop that. If you get trained that many years, and those classes were quick, and so you had to do it to fix computers. I'm a walking computer. My wife, no, I'm not. I don't know what I am, but I'm a complex guy. But anyway, the spending of $500,000 for 2 words. When I was down at the Pride thing, and I was asked what the 2 words are, I didn't know what it is. It's SOGI, sexual orientation, gender identity. By golly, I got it right.
Oh, okay.
And Otter spent $500,000 to prevent those words being put in a law. $500,000. Yeah, you didn't know that? No.
Butch Otter?
Sure he did. Yes,
Governor?
our governor. Well, he didn't have it out of his personal pocket, You know, the state fought this gender identity and the sexual orientation words to be put in this bill. The gay community did what they could, but when you got down to it, the governor beat them in court.
Wow.
So you know, what nonsense is that? We've got 35,000 gay people in Idaho, and they are marginalized. And you know, I said it once, I'll say it again. I don't go for marginalizing anybody because of my experience in Augusta, Georgia, going to segregated schools, and I saw it. You know,
Right.
and I think you can recognize that. It's just not right.
Well, they were segregated here at one time too, you know, in Pocatello. So.
Right. Well, I found out that they're still doing it in the South. You know, if somebody wants to, and you know, the classes aren't available to blacks versus, you know, there's not enough room to get into there, and computer classes and that sort of thing. Okay, and then they use the term using Idaho values that remained undefined as to justify. What does that mean? You know, I don't know what I'm trying to think of the Idaho values, because when I was born, there was 500,000 people in Idaho. When we left in the 70s, there was just about a little bit less than 1 million. And today there's 1.7 million. And when I was at the Idaho Conservation League, which is, you know, doing great things, they had people stand up. I forget the fellow I told you who it was, Short or something. Anyway, he was a Native American.
Oh yeah, right.
But anyway, we stood up, and there was only 7 people out of a room of 50 that stood up that were raised in Idaho. 43 of them stood up, or so. 40 of people stood up, but they moved here. Okay, so a lot of the people, it's like when I attended a breakfast this morning with Brad Little, and he said that, you know, like myself, you know, I was transferred out for job opportunities for 40 years, and I came back and built a home. And he says a lot of people are moving back, but in the meantime, there's not enough. The income level is very, very low
Right.
here, and the kids are moving out to get a job that pays higher. But it appears to me that the power of communities has been centralized in Boise, like in corporate America,
Right.
under control of the GOP series of governors. You look at the things, you know, the bike pass, this thing with the franchise fees. When you put it all together, there's a lot of things that have been removed from the cities and the communities. And that's what Paulette Jordan's talking about. It's not that she doesn't support corporations, but by the way, there's somewhere between 5 and 7% of all the revenue in the state comes from corporations. That's not very much money.
No, it
And
isn't.
they've been very, very happy with a lot of these tax cuts that have come along. But $206 million that they had in surplus. It was interesting. We had a booth, but let me get through this, and then I'll
Yeah,
talk
go
about
ahead.
it.
Go ahead.
Another factor is the 600 syndicates.
We'll be here for 5 hours.
I know what time we have to quit.
No. He'll let us know.
Okay.
He'll let us know.
Well, how much time do we have?
We got 2 hours for
Oh,
sure.
okay.
You're home free.
Wow. I've been kind of windy, you know.
You are windy.
But I have 50 years between my ears, you know. I've been accused of that, you know.
But you're still my friend. You're
Okay.
still my friend.
Another factor is the 600 syndicates, aka lobbies or PACs, managed by 383 employees that fund the GOP elections. You know, and this is where I brought this out, you know, because this is my opponent, Mr. Guthrie, you know, and this is the first report that came in, and it had to be in by the 15th. And so I looked at it, you know, and this is public information. This is not, it's available to everybody. This is not inside information. So I looked at who gave him all this money, this 21 grand in the prime. Idaho Medical PAC, $750. Idaho Cattle Association, $300. Snake River Sugar, $250. Idaho Sugar Beet Growers PAC, $750. ANRIPAC, that they're out of Boise, $300. Pacific Corp, $500. Idaho Power, $500. AgriPac, $750. Winning for Idaho, $1,000. Holy smokes! I think that's a Republican thing. Idaho Dental PAC, IDPAC, $300. Idaho Truck PAC, and $250. Idaho Loggers, $500. Amaga Sis Inc., $1,000. Senate Republican PAC of Idaho, $1,000. Right? That's from somebody else. Brent Hill, $1,000. John Michael Brassley, $200. Idaho Association of Realtors, $250. ICULAC, $500. Blue Cross of Idaho, $500. Anheuser-Busch, I don't think he drinks beer, $250. And then Regions, $500. The point is, I wrote all 200 of them one year because I heard, that they would give me money. Mm-hmm. And you know how many responded?
How many?
Zip.
Zip.
Zero. Okay, so that's why I've had, you got to understand is the system, thanks to Citizens United and others, it's legal. It's not illegal. But why is it all this corporate money is going to the Republican Party? And very little is going to Democrats. You understand?
Yeah.
And what do you do? What do you do with that money? Is that you can buy ads? He has $8,000 advertisements and mailings. $8,000. Man, I got $750. So it's incredible to me. I don't know if he spent it here. Yeah, it says doorstop direct on 4/23. He spent $2,700.
And this is what he spent up to date, right?
It's spent, yeah. And there was a Senate fund, a Senate Republican caucus, but the big one is the mailings. $3,000 for a mailing.
Wow.
Right? But he's not alone. I'm picking on him because he's my, the guy I'm running against.
Yeah.
But it's true throughout the Republican GOP. They're funded by these 600 syndicates, and they're known as lobbies. But there's 383 guys running this thing.
Have you had a debate with him?
Well, just had the forum. That's it.
Oh, at the forum with
He doesn't talk to me much. In fact, when we had the Eastern Idaho State Fair, we just opened up. And I'll get to that in a minute if I can get through this.
Go ahead.
Okay, so it's managed by 383 employees that fund the GOP elections. 33 of these syndicates, dubbed as the Idaho Property Rights Coalition, and I mentioned their name, pushed through the felony trespass in March, now in effect, that raises fines after 3 trespasses in 10 years to $50,000 and a 5-year prison sentence with financial consequences as a result of the felony. There's 4,600 restrictions that come along with it. It's amazing. You got to remember one thing. There's a lot of people from Utah that come here.
Right.
Okay, and they hunt. And a lot of them, and I got relatives, they grew up here, and they shot their first deer up here, and they're looking at this thing saying, what is going on? And by the way, it's in effect right now, as of July 1st.
It's in effect.
Right.
So anybody that gets
three felonies,
three times on the land felony, 1 felony.
Yeah, you get a felony, and you lose 4,600 things. Okay, it's not only voting rights, you lose the ability to own a gun. You lose the ability to get a loan. All these things. It's incredible. It's like it's almost the same way. Now, I heard one guy say, well, the judges will never do it. It's law. It's the law. Now, one of the things that I put on a scenario, and you might not like this, but I said, okay, what happens if I had a deer hunter and he shot a deer, and the deer was, he's chasing the deer, he's in his ATV, right? Might have Utah license plates, might have whatever. Uh-huh. And so he crosses over, and he doesn't know that it's private land, and the deer dies. And so he's out there, and he's doing this thing with the deer, and a guy comes over, is very irate and a jerk. And those people do exist. And in fact, I got feedback from one employee in the county that said that one of the employees were out there looking and inspecting land. The guy came up to him, he says, you're trespassing, get off my land. And if you don't get off, because we have stand your ground, I'll shoot you.
He said that?
Yeah. And well, this is secondhand that I'm getting from somebody. Mm-hmm. I'm not making this story up. And I thought to myself, holy mackerel, when you make a law like this, see what you're doing? And then that was one of the issues that came up.
You're giving them a right to kill people.
You. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but as I pointed out to you, it's not exactly a freebie because, but on the other hand, maybe you just dislike somebody. But if you're a deer hunter, for example, and you're out there and you get this, and what this landowner who maybe is just running, says, I'm suing everybody. I'm gonna file complaints on everybody. What they don't know is maybe this guy's already got 2 trespasses, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, and he's a deer hunter. He's got a 30-06. Okay.
Right.
And he's there, and this guy gives him a bad time. He's obnoxious. And he says, "Get off my land! I got your license plate number, and you're gonna get a trespass." And he walks away. Now this guy's sitting there with his rifle and a deer, and he's thinking about, boy, this is a felony. This is at the felony level.
Right.
He looks around to see if there's anybody around.
Right.
Who's being put in danger here? Both parties. The person that is holding the 30-06 and that landowner that's walking away with his back to him.
That could happen, yeah.
Okay? Not suggesting anything, but this is dumb. This is absolutely incredibly dumb. And then they say that they're going to fix it. Well, yeah.
Once they make the laws, it's really hard to reverse them. That's one thing I've noticed here.
Well,
Just like this one here.
cable
yeah.
franchise fees.
Yeah. Once they got it in place, even it'll take years before it'll ever come back, if they change the law back.
If the other thing is you keep electing the same people over and over and over. The same person that pushed that through in 2011, oh my, he was there. Well, he was back there, right? You think they're going to reverse it? Because it's the same? That's where the expression comes in, politicians and diapers need to be changed for the same reason.
Right.
Okay? But the only thing is that when you're a challenger, you don't have the money. You don't have the money to do things. I'm trying to do it as cheaply as I can, but it's a lot of work. Me and my staff member, Rochelle.
Rochelle.
You know, one thing that people have to recognize is when you're our ages, Hank, that a lot of your friends that you've known for years have a hard time getting around a lot of times, and some of them are dead.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of, you have to rely on that. But
by the way, Steve is in that same bracket.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he's in. We're about the same age.
Yeah. So we're all the same. We know that, and going to Pokey High and you see the list of people that are no longer here, kind of thing, and. We found out at Pokey High, we kept sending, a couple was married in our house when we lived on Park Lane back in the 70s. And we sent Christmas cards to them every year. And we didn't get one back one year. And the next year it got returned. Found out that she had passed away, and then her husband passed away the next year.
At our age, that happens.
That happens a lot, right. So money, and lots of it flows from these 600 syndicates to the GOP incumbents and newcomers. And in fact, the newcomers will get funded via Brett Hill and all those guys, right? They get the money, they don't have any competitor, so therefore they funnel the money to the newcomers, if they're worth their salt. Now, one of the things, when this felony trespass law, I looked at it, all GOP senators voted for all 29 of them. There's 35 of them. Okay, there's only 6 Democrats. But all 29 of them voted for it. And all but one, I talked to one guy, he says, I didn't vote for it. Okay, he was a GOP guy, right? We're talking. And he says, Mike, he says, in 2016, I got money from those syndicates. 2018, I didn't get any money because he didn't play ball. Okay, so he's put on the blacklist. So what does that mean? Well, that means if you don't play ball with them, the money goes away. And then they'll run somebody in the primary against you that they'll fund. Okay? So when you hear about the money thing, when you get in the weeds, as Shelby expressed, you really learn a lot. And I'm a weed guy. I get in the weeds, and sometimes I have to be brought out of the weeds by somebody to get me above. But I try to fly at 40,000 feet, looking at everything, and making sure that looking down on it, that I can net it out. And I do that. But if you really want me to explain it in detail, then you're getting what you're getting today. But anyway, you don't play ball with them, you don't get any money.
Right, I can see that.
383 guys, and that's men and women, but mostly guys, are running around Boise with bags of money. Okay, funding these campaigns, and you can see it. You go out to the Secretary of State's website and look at election campaign reporting. And by the way, the next one is September 30th, next week. And you only have so many days to get it in. You have to enter the information that I read here.
Right.
It's going to be interesting. Paulette Jordan, the GOP's attacking her, and she says she doesn't take any corporate. Well, they don't give her any money anyway. I mean, that's a no, but she does travel around and she does get money, and they say George Soros gives her money. I looked at all her pages, the 35, I didn't see George Soros' names on there. I didn't.
So they lie too.
No.
Oh.
Yeah, it's incredible. Well, anyway, my opponent, Mr. Guthrie, has received, and this is from followthemoney.org. This is public information. You can see it. You can see it in the reports, but they summed it up and showed it. He received $184,000 from these syndicates over 5 election cycles. It went up from 178 or something.
5 election cycles of 2 years apiece. Times.
Right. Yeah, normally senators are 4, like in Utah are 4, but for some reason they do it 2 here. I think, come on. The thing is, it's a short cycle. If they don't like what you're doing, then they'll run somebody against you in the primary to prevent you from continuing on.
And that's probably why they did it.
That's right. Most states have 4-year senators and 2-year representatives. But these PACs rarely donate to Democrats. The job pays $17,000 annually, and I said that the insurance is worth $1,000 a month, and the being full-time employees. I pointed out to you that. And I looked at Senator Risch, and it's information that he has to provide as a senator. He's worth $66 million, but he brags and boasts and say, "I ran for office 33 times." Now, how did he do that? And go as a lawyer that came here from Wisconsin in 1968, and he's been in politics, ran for office 33 times, worth $66 million. And the same thing with Butch Otter. When he was a congressman, he had to report it was $8 million that he was worth. The next year when he retired and came over and got to be governor, he was worth $20 million.
Can you imagine that, Steve?
Now,
how would you like to be a politician?
I know Butch quite well, and I will tell you, I would not want to be in his shoes.
Well, probably not. Well, I'm glad you know him. He's a charming guy.
He is. I live right next door to him in Caldwell for
did
years.
you? Did you? He's likable, but he's a salesman, and I ain't buying what he's selling. I have to say that. But
I said the same thing when Joe Humble was here. He talks a great talk.
Right.
He doesn't do it.
Yeah, it's called baloney. Yeah. So, and then the other thing is they introduced the law that said, I'll mention again, that the law that said that if you're elected in all levels, you're elected servant, that you have to disclose your assets while you're in office. This is true in 48 states. They introduced it, and the reaction from the GOP folks, what's the matter? Don't you trust me?
No.
Well, you evidently forgot the old Reagan expression that says trust but verify, right? And the other one was you're putting a target on our back,
Yeah.
You're supposed to not make money in public service.
You're not supposed to, exactly. You're
Exactly,
supposed to
but if
serve
you
the
set it
community.
up. Well, no,
Go ahead, Steve, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I said, tell that to President Trump.
Yeah. Well, I don't. Please.
Yeah.
I went around at the fair down there, and there's a lady that I've known for a number of years, and I said, "Hi, I'm Mike Saville. I'm running for the Senate." And she says, "Do you like Trump?" And I said, "No." "Well, I'm not voting for you." I said, "I'm not running against Trump. I'm running for the Idaho Senate." "Well, I'm not voting for you. I'm a Republican, I guess, since Abe Lincoln." But then another guy came up and says, "Yeah, that crooked Hillary." I said, "Crooked Hillary, and that's the reason that you're not voting for me." And I thought, holy mackerel. And Hank, just as a little sidelight, National Enquirer, on every grocery checkout stand in America, Trump hired him to put out these front page ads on every grocery store in America that shows Hillary's crooked, she knows aliens, she's taken money, and all these different things. If you look at it, I put it on my Facebook, and it's obvious that a lot of these folks was going on the checkout stand, and there it was. It had that effect. At least
it's advertising.
That's right. It is.
It's advertising.
It was cheap advertising, but it was on every grocery stand. But they were lies.
Go ahead.
Funnily enough, though, the Justice Department gave this guy immunity.
That's correct. And now Mr. Trump is going to have a little bit of problem. Yeah, that's correct. His name is Pecker.
Yeah, my wife always chuckles at that.
Yeah. I don't know if I should. I better not.
Yeah.
We'll let it go. And this is one of the things, and so looking at the side, why are these guys running for office continually, financed by these corporations, these syndicates, these PACs, or whatever you want to call them, 383 guys running around with money. Why are they doing that when it pays $17,000 a year and you go back? Well, there's a lot of information that you pick up, like bankruptcies, for example. If you're a member of the board of a hospital, for example, as being a senator, you can figure out who's getting bankruptcy and then find out what land they have and that sort of thing. So there's lots of incentives to make money. And when Fulcher, he was at this doctor's healthcare program, he made a statement. He says, and they were talking about healthcare, and he says, when we repeal Obamacare, we're going to make money, okay. We're going to make money, okay? Now, what does that mean? Who's the we and who's going to provide the money? Okay? Mm-hmm. And then when Otter and Butch submitted that, and I call it sneeze and sniffle insurance, It doesn't cover $13,000. They're talking about cheap insurance, right? In the Idaho way. Baloney. The cost of a healthcare in emergency rooms is $13,000, can be $13,000 a day. And in this regional hospital here, there's 83,000 residents here in Bannock County. 43,000 went into that emergency room annually, according to their data. 43,000. So what's the chances of you being exposed to something like that could result in a $13,000 a day charge and lead to bankruptcy and financials? We're the only country that permits bankruptcy. Before Obamacare, it was 800,000, and 60% of those people had junk insurance. When Obamacare fixed that, okay, you might not like it, but now the Medicaid expansion, I'll get into that. But anyway, it's it's money, and then when you've been trained in money, you know money, right? Okay. Anyway, I recognize I can't convince all of the majority GOP senators, but I will do my best to help them understand the importance of not starving education with funding where the parents don't have to buy janitorial supplies. Now, one guy says, what school was that? Well, when you go out and meet people and you just talk to them, this lady and her family moved to Idaho from some other state, and she says, I can understand pencils and papers and erasers. He says, but why are we buying hand towels and janitorial supplies in schools?
Yeah, that's actually.
And there was a lawsuit. There was a lawsuit that was filed, and I looked that up. Somebody mentioned to a teacher, said, "Well, there's a lawsuit filed." Yeah, but the lawsuit doesn't mean anything because nothing was really done. And he said they can continue to do that until somebody really does it. It's still, in other words, they can still ask for these supplies if they want, even though the Constitution says that they can't. That was it. The Constitution says they can't do that because they're supposed to fund education in this state, but they're asking for donations from parents and all kinds of fees.
Well, yeah, that's legal to ask for donations, yeah. Right?
Not according to the Constitution.
Really?
Yeah, that's what this thing was.
And so they're going against that part of the Constitution?
Yeah, they're saying it, but somebody has to take them to court to prove it. Okay?
What do you think of that, Steve?
If you really look at education in Idaho, we're supposed to be funded by state lands. And what has happened instead is that it is controlled by cattle ranchers, sheep ranchers, farmers, people controlling grazing rights, people controlling timber rights. And it's been sold at tremendously ridiculous prices. And even in cases where we have a higher bidder, the land board has chose to give it to the cattlemen.
Well, they mentioned that 1 million acres have disappeared.
Yes, and I'm trying to tell people, there's enough property in Idaho. 1 out of every 36 sections in this state belongs to the schools. It's supposed to be supporting the schools. We call this a land grant college. There wasn't supposed to be anything for tuition or anything. And what has happened instead is they are using it for private interests, those same people who are contributing to these candidates. They are using
Property Rights Coalition.
You've got it. And the Cattlemen's Association,
there's part
and
of
Jack
that list.
Simplot,
Yeah.
and all of these people, Idaho Power, all of these people hold state monopoly on state property.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, you just, why is it that way? And by the way, that can be changed.
Yes.
Okay, there's 105 legislators and 1 governor, right? They control all this stuff. The governor appoints 150 people, I understand, to different agencies, and appoints Democrats. And of course, the Democrats say, well, I hope he gets reelected. But the only point, the party gets, I got a cushy job, right? It's not right.
Well, yeah,
I hope I'm expressing that, but just to say from my perspective, I can't do anything. I'm only a guy that's running for office, and if I don't get elected, nothing's going to happen. So they're going to work very hard to see that I don't. And they're starting to ramp that up a little bit, I think. But I'll close by sharing an experience with a 4th grader in Marsh Valley.
Okay.
Okay. I set up a booth down there. I've done it for 3 years. Suddenly I'm considered not a prophet. I didn't know you make money in running for office, but anyway, I was way over here. I used to be there. The Republicans had a booth there, but they have a lot of talking signs, but you can't hear anything. They're just signs sitting up there in their booth. But Rochelle and I go down there, and this is an experience with a 4th grader in the Marsh Valley. He came to our booth with a 7th grader, and I asked him if he liked school. Mm-hmm. He said no. And I asked why. He said, because the books we have are 10 years old and have torn out missing pages.
Oh, no kidding. And this is in Marsh Valley.
Well, yeah, I won't identify which school he was talking about, but yes, this was the Marsh Valley School District. Now, you know, I'm not saying you can't get blood out of a turnip. If you don't have the money, the school districts, and like I explained to people, I says all I can do as a state senator is to try and convince these folks. And by the way, a lot of people that run for office are good people. In other words, they're not there for money, but it kind of evolves if you've been there too long. It's just the nature of the beast. That's why, you know, I don't want to call it term limits, but let's just say that you've got to understand that you've got to have some turnover with new people all the time. But when you have money that's supporting these incumbents, and in Idaho, it's the Grand Old Party, the Republicans, and then you have me as a Democrat. I'm not rich, right? And I'm finding out this stuff. I says, how do I compete? Well, this is one of the programs that I can, but it's going away, right? But, you know, I have to knock on doors. By the way, I've got an electric bike. And I found out that I can go from house to house on that electric bike as quick as I can, even going up hills. And
Wow.
Yeah, it's, you know, I've had it for years. It's my strategy. The only thing is I get a little saddle sore because I have to get off and on, you know. But yeah, it's working out very well. I did 60 homes in like an hour, and then talk to people along the way. So I'm doing that. I'll be.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah, it was innovative because you know we can't get around as long as I was.
You have to go house to house, and you have to have personal contact. I think too.
But there's 20,000 people.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can only do so many, but hopefully they'll.
You're not spending any gas money, right?
Yeah.
It's all.
Yeah.
It's all. Is it run?
Yeah, my F-350 diesel pick-em-up truck. You know.
Oh, okay. It's spinning it.
I got 102 signs. You know, I have to, and I called my staff member. Hey, Rochelle, can I go out and put signs today? Okay, she gives me permission. So anyway, we have some fun with that. But yeah, we don't have any staff. It's all, you know, whatever I can get. We do have people help us occasionally, but it's just the way it is. You know, when you're older and a challenger and that sort of thing, you're doing everything yourself. And you don't, and they, by the way, they don't go out and knock on doors. You know, in fact, there's a lot of feedback that the Republican guys don't do that. All they do is spend $3,000 for a mailing that goes into everybody's mailbox, and then have free press. Randy Armstrong did his cannibalism letter. You know, that's free press. His picture was there. Cannibalism. That was the way you get free press, right? And you know, I've tried, but I guess I'm just not good at it. But a lot of these guys that are elected, they get a lot of free press. I mean, they might hold a meeting, but as a challenger, and it's like, you know, you look in the paper and you see this.
It's who you know. And,
well, whatever you see this
news
picture.
Business.
Well, we need more journalism. Let's put it this way: they've got a picture of this lady, and she's writing, asking why Paulette Jordan overturned her staff, and you look at the picture and you look down at the bottom. It's the Idaho Republican Party Communications Director asking in the paper, it's published in the paper, asking why Paulette Jordan turned over her staff. She needs to answer these questions. Now, come on, all right? And then you have, I mean, come on. I mean, what does that tell you, right?
Yeah, well, they're attacking her in that direction.
Well, and the thing is that we had the communications director to respond to an attack, and you could find it in the upper corner, and there was no picture. But it was, there was no picture of this gal, you know, it was a rebuttal. But the other gal had a big picture.
Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah, look at that. You know? Wow, look at that. They really have done a number on that.
Well, you know, the papers are owned, and they're not, you know, it's not the same, in my opinion, that we had with Deering. Remember Deering?
Yeah, you know, the newspaper owners of the older ones actually were more fair than the ones that are today.
Yeah, it's corporate.
Yeah.
Well, the billionaires, there's billionaires that own it, and that was one of the things I wrote the FCC, and I followed it. I told you I followed the FCC, right? They had public hearings about 10 years ago, where it was proposed by I think in the Bush administration, because you got 3 Republicans and 2 Democrats. Okay, they held hearings all over the country. Thousands of people showed up because what they were talking about was they were considering merging the markets of radio, TV, and print.
So they would be the only voice.
That's the only voice, right? Owned by the same company. And Mr.
Wow.
Copps, you know, he was an adamant, you know, speeches on it. This is wrong. This is a threat to democracy. Well, they made the rule, right? The FCC guys made the rule. The GOP guys made the rule. Well, what happened? 18,000 investigative reporters went away. They lost their jobs.
Just that quick.
Just that quick. And you know, Mother Jones and Nation is still around because they're great sources, but that's what happened. And so now we have a plethora of Rush Limbaugh, Hannity, Beck, Savage, and Fox. You know, or you know these guys, Michael. You know, I had to buy an XM radio. We were camping and we turned on a station in Boise. And there was a guy named Michael Savage or Michael, whatever his name was.
Right.
She told me, he says, if you don't turn that station off there, and it was the only one I could get. She says, I'm gonna throw a brick at it, or a pot. No, a pot, she said. So I had to buy an XM radio for my RV, you know, so we didn't have to listen to it. You know, the nice thing, and by the way,
XM.
XM, Sirius XM, satellite radio.
Oh,
in the
satellite
cars.
radio.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can buy little radio units and put an antenna to receive. I listen to XM 127,
Right.
and then WCPT. By the way, did you get your Dot Birkin?
You know what? I've been so busy trying to get ready to end the show
Yeah.
that I haven't been able to.
I'll help you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. When I'm slowing down now.
I know. Yeah, we all are. Well, the expression is, you know, when that child told me, I really thought, and I used it in the speech, you know, in my closing.
Yeah.
And there was some gasp in the audience. But that's when you're out talking to people and you're picking up things, and that's what we have to do.
And that 4-year-old actually knew.
Fourth grader.
Fourth grader, excuse me. Fourth
He
grader.
was about that.
Yeah, he knew the problem just by.
No,
what, no. I mean, he knew that the book was old and the pages were
10 years.
missing, and he recognized that as a problem, and he didn't like the school because of it. Didn't like
correct.
school because of it.
That's correct. And this is an out of the mouth of babes, you know.
Right.
You know, here again, the parents weren't there, and I just asked him that simple question: how do you like school? And he told me that. And when I asked why, he said that. And he wasn't smiling. He wasn't happy. But the girl said, well, I'm homeschooled. Just like that. And I don't know if he was wanting to be homeschooled or what, but he didn't like the fact that there was missing pages out of the books. And it shouldn't be that way.
Right.
You know, when you're starving education like this bunch has for the last 20 years plus, you know, property tax, everybody wants a tax cut. You know, half of that goes out of the education budget. The $206 million. And you'd see them, well, we got to give it back. And you hear Brad Little say that, well, you got to give it back. You know, unlike those liberals who want to just spend money and keep it. Well, that should have been used to fund education, right? Our 15,000 teachers and 300,000 K through 12 deserve better. A final point, had I returned to Idaho and the Democratic Party was responsible for the starvation of K through 12, I would have run as a Republican. So I don't have any allegiance as far as that goes. It's the issue that I saw, and that's why, you know, when the state legislator called me up and I saw these children getting off the bus at 4:45, a 12-hour day, and then on Fridays the mothers and the single moms had to pay $2,000 a year for daycare. It's wrong. And so anyway, that's what I did. You know, and you learn a lot, Hank. You really do when people come up to you. It's not so much what I'm doing. Hi, I'm Mike Saville, running for the Idaho Senate. It's what they tell me.
Right.
Okay, and that's what I share with you. There's just too much of it. And by the way, we had a Eastern Idaho State Fair. We had the Eastern Idaho Democrats. Okay, and we have a little booth, 10 by 10, and we have 37 volunteers. You know, there's 57 slots and 37 volunteers, and some of them did multiples.
By the way, if you were elected, what is the plan for you to? What is some of the first things that you're going to do if you did get elected?
Well, right now, Hank, really, you know, I've never held office, I'll just tell you that. But I have the skills, I think, and the ability to negotiate with folks. And you know, politics is a consensus system.
Right.
You don't get everything you want. But I think a lot of them need information, but maybe not. Maybe they're just the party first and Idaho last. You know, I don't know that. The only thing is that you can see that, you know, I dig into things and I try to convince folks, and we'll try to. I'll present the facts. And if they don't accept it and walk away, and they call me a socialist, I guess the conversation's over.
They call you a socialist, huh?
Is there something wrong with being a socialist?
Well, it was interesting. The buzzword now that GOP is using for the next 45 days is socialism. Now I'll tell you why. Because I'll tell you why. It was funny. We had this booth up there, and we have it runs from 10 to 10 every day for 9 days. Well, that's a lot of people that you have to get in. But the idea is when we put it together, a lot of those booths were, they had vendors, and they're there all the time in relief. But it was kind of a long trip, but we did it. It was we got to consider 100 miles every day.
Right.
Start at 5:30 in the morning and get home at 11 o'clock at night. And that's if you pull a full shift. But anyway, we have 1,000 people. When we first started that 4 years ago, they came by and said, "Man, there are Democrats in Idaho, right?" And yeah, here we are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And today they don't say that. They say, "We're glad to see you," and they stop. Okay, they stop and talk to us. And we talked, and 240,000 people marched by that because we're in a pretty good location, and they stop and talk to us. We register, and youngsters, we say, "Have you voted?" And they'll say, or "Are you registered to vote?" Because we registered about over 100 folks. And
You did?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah. That's part of our mission. We don't care if they're Republican or whoever. We take
that's
them
good.
we take them to the county, and they send them to wherever they need to go. We just do that as a service.
Right.
But one of the pitches was I point out to them and I says, "Are you registered to vote?" They might be 18, 19, 21, or whatever, even under that. I says, "Vote." And this is the reasons why. And in 2014 and 2016, there was, I looked at it, analyzed, I says, who's voting and who isn't? Well, over 46 are the, age 46 and over is 50% of the registered voters. There's 800,000 voters that are registered and 400,000 that are not, okay? And then the other, but I was only going from the county. And the other 45 and under was the other 50% of the registered voters, right? Mm-hmm. So we looked at who cast the votes. 70% were the 46 and older, average age 55.
55.
Right. And then the other thing is that the way the system works is that these people, folks get off work, and they might pick up their child, they go by to vote, and they see all these people waiting in line between 5 and 8 o'clock. And a lot of them, there were 65 registered the same day folks, and it takes 10 to 12 minutes to register those folks, according to my wife, and it only takes about 3 minutes if there's no waiting. But that clogs the lines. Okay?
That's 100 more people that are going to vote than, because you've been working on it.
Well,
That's
yeah,
good.
but we do it all.
If they stay in line.
You have to, if they stay in line. Yeah.
Well, the only thing is that we don't care if they're Republican. We don't care what it is. I mean, that's their business, right? And they can change it so we don't do anything. But the only point is that we do that. So why is it that 20% of the under 45 don't vote, right? Why is it? So I had a little speech there, and I go up to him and I said, don't worry. I says, me being an old guy, we're going to take care of you, and we'll make the laws that affect your financials for the rest of your life. And they looked, I said, yeah, we're going to make the laws that are going to determine your interest rates. We're going to make the laws that's going to determine your student loans and all this kind of thing. And I said, don't worry about a thing. Us guys over 55 will take care of you. And it's still tongue in cheek, but they say, where do I register? So
that was a good approach.
Yeah, we laugh
approach.
and we have fun with them, But the
That's
importance
good,
is
but that's true too. That's also true that, because that's what's happening actually.
Yeah.
We talked about this with Joe Humble while she was here, that this is a form of voter suppression here, closing down the poll places, making it difficult for Hispanics to register.
All of the above. Absolutely. You're absolutely, and it is. And remember when the Bannock County Democrat, or the county commissioners down here, I forget the guy's name, Frazier, he wanted to take them from 58 to 34.
Right.
Yeah, well, they pushed back on it, and it's there. And what they were doing is they were taking away, and there's another example, they were taking away the power of the local county clerk to determine what the early voting would be.
Yes.
And that was Mr. Manwaring and Mr. Guthrie. Okay, and it failed by 1 vote. That's the kind of things they're doing in Boise. Okay, and it failed, unfortunately. I mean, we had a lot of noise, and then they realized that, and then we used it at the fair. We were telling everybody about it, and they says, you know what they're doing down in Bannock County? It's a form of voter suppression. They did the same thing in Arizona, and the lines went to 5 hours long. there's a lot of things, and now I understand they're saying that the schools don't have security, so therefore, or it's a security risk to have people vote at schools, which is nonsense. Okay, so yeah, they wanted to reduce it from 800 registered voters down to up to 1,600 to stand in line at the polling place to vote. Now, what's that tell you?
Yeah,
right? And there's a guy named Paul Wayring, or what anyway, I put it out there on the Facebook, and he was part of the Heritage Foundation. Are you familiar with the Heritage Foundation and Cato Institute?
no.
Well, the Cato Heritage Foundation and also Alec, this guy was part of that thing. And the reason I got kind of curious about it, because when I wrote Orrin Hatch all the time, he referred to the Heritage Foundation and Cato Institute as far as his statistics. Well, guess who funds the Heritage Foundation and the Cato Institute? And Alec, the Koch brothers.
The Koch brothers.
The Koch brothers. So anyway, and he gave a speech in 1980. He says, this is called the Goo-Goo syndrome. Everybody wants everybody to vote. We don't want everybody to vote. And quite frankly, if everybody votes, we lose.
That's true.
That's right. And this is the guy that formed those quote Koch-funded groups. People, you know, when I came across a thing that says that in 1966, when I got out of the Air Force, 77% of everybody trusted their government. Okay, stakeholders. Today it's 17%. Now, if we don't do something about it, if we don't get the youngsters to buy into it and understand, you know, and they don't vote for things like the Democrats going to take your guns. You know, Democrats believe in raising taxes. Democrats believe in abortion, and Democrats are, you know, there's 10,000 illegals voting in income. You know, if you really get to look at it, you got to look and understand the issues. We need the younger people to buy into this country, into this democracy, and they're not. There's 800,000 people that aren't registered, and when you take a look at the numbers and you see that 70% are older people that are voting, okay, age 55, average age. Come on,
Right.
okay. The average age I think is somewhere in the 40s or maybe less, but they got to vote. You know, this is not something. This is a democracy. We can lose this thing. You know, if we and right now, Mr. Trump is doing his best to do that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely
You know,
right.
I agree with you on these national interests and your opinions on Citizen United and all the rest of that, but I would really like to talk about schools.
Yeah.
Okay, because this is a state issue here
Yes,
in our
it is.
state.
Yes.
And one of the things I'd like to talk about is the underfunding of teacher salaries.
Can I express on that?
Yeah, I really want your opinion on that.
Okay, let me give you my opinion. I looked at it. There's a chart that shows the average pay for experienced teachers and average pay. Now here again, this is a database that I don't know if it's true or not, but I know that there's Paulette said that Idaho is 49th in teacher pay. Okay, I don't know how that's measured. There's 15,000 teachers here, but I'm going to tell you one thing that's being done here. When I was meeting teachers all the time, they were telling me, man, are they moving the bar? And it's all this, you know, changing of criteria so I can get an advancement and all this kind of thing. It was to be micromanaged is what it was. And I sat and listened to a lot of these, and I went to these experts that were brought in that were going to tell them, well, this is how you're going to get more revenue and more money. And the teachers weren't buying it because they knew that what it was taking them away from teaching. And all of a sudden it dawned on me. I saw this before 25 years ago at IBM. Well, 20 years ago. They micromanaged to get rid of the older worker. And what they did was, we had 250,000 employees in the United States. Today there's 50,000. There's 150,000 probably in India. Or the last I checked was 130,000. What they did is they made our jobs absolutely miserable. I mean, you couldn't do your job. You're always getting next. And finally, you know, I took issues, and they were trying to make us work overtime without reporting it, even though we were non-exempt employees, because we were called out 24/7. I mean, you can't be a manager and be called out at 2 o'clock in the morning to work on. But anyway, and then I saw it was just miserable. And then the new hires that they were replacing the old ones that left, but they didn't have that many. But they can't work here. And it dawned on me. They came. I got a thing from the teachers saying that they couldn't hire new teachers. They couldn't find anybody who wanted to come to Idaho. There's 6 million teachers that are qualified in the United States. 3 of them teach, and there's a pool of 3 million, okay, that are qualified to be teachers. But when those, and so I saw it, I said, yeah, I said the younger teachers that are being told to get, they quit. Do you think if their job was made miserable and they couldn't teach because of all this micromanagement that they would recommend coming to the state of Idaho?
Yeah, they won't.
I do know that anyone with a college education in Idaho, if it's into an average, all teachers make less than 20% less
well,
than
I looked
someone
at
with a
it,
comparable degree.
Well, you'll have to, here again, I don't know if the database, but I looked at it. The average new teacher is about 33,000.
Right.
The average experienced teacher is 49,000.
Yes. I
Okay,
know.
that's the same way. But I looked at it compared to the other states.
Yeah.
It's not that far off.
It is not that far off if what you're talking about is Wyoming.
No, I'm talking about the whole country.
Okay, well, according to Time magazine,
Well, Wyoming is 16,000 per child. They make $56,000 a year over there.
yeah, according to Time magazine, Idaho is one of the lowest paying states in the nation.
Well, I heard that. I haven't seen the article,
Oh,
but I just
could have brought it.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, Time magazine also says that Idaho trains a great number of teachers, but we lose them all. They stay an average here of 5 years.
let me
The
ask you
reason for that is, get this, in order to
Okay.
collect Percy in Idaho, you've got to stay in the school district here in Idaho. You have no retirement policy that covers these people. They go into other fields where they can make more money. We can't go on training California's teachers and Alaska's teachers. We
Why
have
not? Oh,
we
I
need
see.
them for our
oh,
own.
yeah, I see.
the
this way.
whole
I'm sorry.
reason why we send them to college here
Right.
is to benefit our society, not somebody else's.
Well, when you have paid wages, now one of the things now, have you ever had a job? Now, I'll give you an example. When I was
Okay.
working at Armed Forces Television, I was paid 90 cents an hour.
90 cents, can you imagine?
Well, I got
Of course, you know, that was the wage in those days.
Well, I looked at like 2 weeks, I was getting $35. Okay, and I was making like 280 or whatever, but I started at 72. I had more money than a lot of guys, but it was still $35 for 2 weeks. I got the last one that I had there. They raised it to $1 before I left. I got a 10-cent raise. But the only point is, I didn't care about it. I didn't care about the money. Hank, I love that job. I would have
Right.
done it. And I would have, if IBM, if at KVSI, old Christensen, he just retired. He's the guy that interviewed me. It's Christensen, and he was going to pay me $300 a month, 6 days a week from 6 to 1, and I was almost going to do it. And I called up IBM, and they were stalling on as far as hiring me, and I knew it was $450 a month. But I told them this. I says, if you don't hire me by next Monday, I'm going to Montpelier and spin records. I mean, that's, money doesn't, it was not an object. It's because it was a fun job. And IBM, and they called the management, and I did very well on the scores, and they said, well, we don't see many guys like you that are trained. I was trained 2 years in the Air Force. They said, okay, we'll waive your check, your credibility check, and we'll hire you. And I said, okay, and then I can stay here and be with Rochelle and get married. But the only point is that when somebody is happy in the job, and I have met teachers and I've had teachers, they never in this country they've never really been paid a lot of money,
No?
but they love to teach.
That's
Yes.
it.
The only
And if
reason
you-
why we have schools.
Right, and you make their life miserable through these micromanagement programs that are addressing to try. Oh, we don't want to spend any more. Let's get rid of the older teacher, hire more teachers. But the thing is, the reason that they make the younger teacher miserable is because they don't want any age discrimination lawsuits. And I know a little bit about that. I went to the Supreme Court on an issue. But yeah, and I'm just saying, flying in a helicopter, that's my opinion, is what they're doing. So when I look at all these different programs of what Otter's doing and what the GOP is doing and ALEC and all these kind of laws, taking away the power to the cities, put it in Boise, when I look at that, I say, that's what they're doing. They're running the state like a corporation, like an IBM, to centralize everything, take away the power, and then make laws that are going to make them a lot of money.
Right.
I'd also like to talk about your opinion on charter schools and how are charter schools funded?
Charter schools, that I don't really know, but that's Otter's subjective. And then when I looked at the National Education Association site, they said that there's no real improvement as far as performance is concerned between charter schools. It's a profit thing. And I asked the charter school advocates, they like charter schools, and I says, can poor people go there? And I never get a real straight answer.
Yeah.
Okay, I went to school in a segregated school system in Augusta, Georgia for 5 years. And this whole charter thing reminds me of that system. And I don't think it's right. You know, you're taking money away from the public system and putting it into a private, profit-oriented kind of a thing. The same thing with online. There was another thing online that they did. If Bill Moyers exposed this, this came from the ALEC organization to get online schooling for profit. So, you know, it's so massive because of the billionaire Koch brothers. It's $1 billion a year they spend on this through this ALEC organization, introducing 200 bills in every legislature in the United States, okay, for this. You'll have to go out there. Bill Moyers, you know, he was PBS.
Yeah, you know Bill Moore, don't you?
Bill
Yes,
Bill Moyers. Yeah, he's retired now. He's in his 80s, but he did a thing.
Missy's show too.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Well, 4 years ago. It's still online, and I posted that recently on my Facebook. I put a lot of that stuff I'm talking about on the Facebook, and I do it because and as far as somebody will say something, and I'll share that Bill Moyers said, "What is the American Legislative Exchange Council?" And then I put a list of all the Idaho legislators who have been part of ALEC, and these are the instruments that they use. Jeff Thompson was recognized as Chairman of the Year by ALEC out of all 50 states in 2014. And his dad worked for IBM, and I got to know him a little bit, but he got knocked off in the primary. I guess he didn't perform as well, or he didn't run as well, or didn't want to do it. But ALEC, if you go out, it's all Republicans that are part of the ALEC organization, which is the funnel of all these corporate bills going through the state of Idaho.
Well, they were
Excuse me.
involved in the Koch brothers were the right-to-work laws here.
Correct.
So-
It came from the ALEC organization. Exactly.
Yeah.
And they had
Yeah.
some questions that
I heard that name back then, you know.
Right. You know, and well, by the way, did I tell you I was endorsed by the AFL-CIO?
Good.
Good.
IBEW 449. I got to
All
get the
right,
number right.
good.
And then the Southwest National Association of Women.
Good.
Yeah,
Great.
And I think some others are going to happen. You know, but to answer your, I hope I answered your question.
No, not really.
Well, the only
Because
point.
here's my problem.
Okay.
According to local studies, the charter schools are doing worse than the public schools. They're hiring inexperienced teachers who are not able to teach as well as somebody with 20 years experience. And they're hiring non-union people simply to prevent to make more profit for a corporation. Now, I don't have any problem with somebody wanting to send their kid to a private school.
Right. We have it in.
Enrique sends his grandchildren to a parochial school.
Yeah,
Right.
Grace Lutheran, for example, and I was a representative for the Lutheran community, and we had churches that
Yeah.
had those.
But Enrique does not ask the state government to contribute to
Right.
his private school.
Right.
They do.
Yeah.
Okay. And I seriously object to having public funds in charter
Well,
schools.
you're absolutely right, and that's coming from the ALEC organization.
And the other thing I'm going to tell you about it is they are institutes of racism.
That's why I say poor
Right.
people.
Right.
Yeah.
What they're doing is they're separating out people that they don't have to take care of, like the retarded children or disabled children, because they won't accept them. They don't take the Hispanics. I mean, you've watched them coming into that charter school by you. They're all white.
Yeah.
And now, I have a problem with this because here in Idaho, we had a bishop a while back, a fellow by the name of Sylvester Trainer, who closed down most of the Catholic schools in the state.
Why?
Because the majority of our parishioners, and we were using parish funds to support these schools, as well as contributions from the parents. The majority of our parishioners were Hispanic. You look at the classes and they were all white. Sylvester said, hey,
It's not working.
we're not going to have racism in the Catholic Church. And he shut them down.
Shut them down rather than integrating everything.
He just shut them down.
Yeah. That was Bishop Tran.
Why didn't he try and integrate it? Or was that before?
Oh, that would be fine if you had the money to do it, but the
Okay.
parish just said that they didn't have the money to do it. If you go to a Catholic Mass
Yeah, my
and you
mother's
pass the
Catholic.
collection,
Right.
you pass the collection plate, at the English Mass you'll see that it's really lightweight because all the people write checks. If you go to Hispanic Mass, like Enrique does, you can hardly carry the collection basket because it's all full of coins.
All coins.
The Hispanics were providing support for that Catholic school, and they couldn't send their kids there. The same thing is happening with charter schools here today. And I think that the state ought to get out of the charter school business.
Well, you know Governor Otter is for that.
I am certainly aware of
There's
that. He was
50
also for the private prison thing. But
Right.
look what happened there. It developed into a what they call it, a gladiator school.
How many people are going to recognize all these trends that are happening here? And how is it good public policy? You think that's been the reason for a lot of these laws? Is it good public policy? Is it? No, it's not. And what you're telling, by the way, I get I think it was the Idaho Education News or something. Remember I showed you that?
Right.
54 schools are now, out of the 800, I think it was 800, are charters. And they posted, and that whole document was boasting on the charter schools, and this is supposedly a neutral reporting system, and it's not. And I even said that this is charter school promotion.
Say, I don't have any problem with people trying to get better education
Right.
for their kids, but I do have a problem of using my tax money to fund it.
All right. Well, how about this?
If they don't include the poor and the ones that are
Right.
disabled and things
Well,
like that.
that was segregation. When
Right.
we had it.
Well, we're saying it's coming back here now.
I know it is. There's 93% of this state is white, and I run in and I see these Confederate flags flying around. Idaho wasn't even a state when when those Confederate flags came out in 1865. So why are they here? Well, a lot of people are bringing their mores up here,
their ideas,
thing. And I don't. And what is it? The Southern Poverty Law Center. I get that information all the time. There's 7 different hate groups in Idaho going on. But the thing is, you got to start talking about it. And what you're doing here is talking about it. And when people start talking about it, then maybe something can happen. When I'm in the legislature, and I'll just be very simple, I'll talk about it. If they walk away, then I'll say, well, you're walking away. You're not interested. We had a fellow that we helped elect down in Utah. I didn't know anything about it. I just didn't like the other guy. There was 12 of us. Mm-hmm. And he managed to beat the guy that was destined to be governor. He was a Senate whip or something. This guy was just a fighter and a half. They tried to take it away from him. And he got elected. He had to go to the Supreme Court to get this thing done. And he was there for 4 years, and he was just something else. And they wouldn't talk to him, or they put him in a bottle somewhere. And he'd just say, was there a press around here somewhere? And he was a darling of the press. The thing is that he was expressing his opinion, and they were doing it. I don't know what the answer is, but when you got 30 or 40 years of control by one party, and then you have guys like my opponent here that's been in politics for 20 years for $17,000 a year, what does that tell you? And then they pass laws like the 2011 law with the cable. You think he's going to come back and entertain removing that, especially when it came from ALEC? The same thing with the bypass. People better realize that if you want to improve education, if you want to get some of these dumb things, it doesn't make any sense, the felony trespass, you've got to elect different leadership.
Right.
And that's where it comes in. Well, not everybody's got the skills to do it. I talked to 2 senators, and I said, well, how'd you like it? It wasn't worth it, that's what they said. I said, it wasn't worth it. I said, but they never said why.
Oh, they didn't?
No. So I don't know what to expect. The only thing is I'll find out. When people come up to me right now, I say to them, they tell me these things. I said, well, I appreciate that, but you got to understand, I can't do anything. I'm not elected. Right now, I've got to focus on convincing 12% of the populace to vote for me. I said, if I don't get elected, then I'm going to join. Me and Hank are going fishing.
Right.
Okay? And I'll take you too.
Yeah, we'll go fishing.
You're not a fisher.
You don't like fish?
I eat fish.
You like fish? You like
I
fishing?
eat fish. I just don't have the patience to sit in the boat. And
Oh, is that right?
Well, he enjoyed it.
Hey, how
got free.
about a little beer, though?
Yeah,
We had a little
yeah.
beer to go with it. How about some
you're
nuts?
You're going to have to bring the tequila.
Oh, that'd be tequila.
and Johnny Cash Records.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. We could put Johnny Cash in there.
Yeah.
We can. Yeah.
But yeah, I am opposed to charter schools. I don't mind if people send their kids there, but they should pay for it.
Well, one of the things that you got to recognize is when you're a senator, you got 35 people here, or 34 other people. The only thing I can tell people, and I get the specifics like this, I says my primary goal is to get money for the schools. That's it.
That's
okay?
what I'm
and find a
right.
way to,
Yeah.
and then what the schools decide if they want to do the 4-day, that's fine. That's up to them. But we want to get money so that kid has a book that doesn't have it's not 10 years old and has torn out pages.
Right.
And that's got to come from money. You can't take blood out of a turnip. And like out there in Marsh Valley, $12 million disappeared in 12 years. Okay, you know, they can't make that up.
And you're right.
And in agriculture, I haven't met a farmer. I grew up on a farm. You ever met a farmer who likes taxes?
I actually tried to farm one time. Anybody make money at it has my admiration.
Yeah, well, the farm that I grew up on was 300 acres with 2 families. We had dairy cow. They had a horse and all this stuff, right? On 300 acres. And I talked to a guy over there. He says there's 6 farms that have 10,000 acres. I was out putting out a sign, and this big old spud machine came by, right? And I said, holy cow! I went down to Yuma and then went a tour with the Farm Bureau guy, and he showed me this cotton picking machine. You know, $500,000 for that cotton picking machine, and that was his cotton picking machine. And it was, you ever heard of a cotton picking machine? Yeah. They had these steel things he was showing me, but he had 2 Hispanic workers to come over from Mexico every day. He provides them with a house. They have 11 crops down there. The land is worth $50,000 an acre. And he was saying that the farmers out there were griping and complaining about things, all the taxes and all the thing. And he said, he gave this talk, and he says, you know, you guys, and he was the head of the Farm Bureau down there. He says, you know, people are starting to get suspicious. And they said, well, what do you mean? He says, 5 of you have Lear jets parked in your barns. Well, we got to get to Colorado where others instead. So anyway,
right.
You know, when it comes down to it, the purpose of being in office is to tax it fairly, tax accordingly, and then spend wisely. I don't have any problem with 21,000 millionaires and a billionaire making money. I don't have any problem with that. But you will fund education, and they're not doing it.
That's what I was going to say too. If there's something wrong with public education, we need to fix it.
Well, the only thing, the thing is that
in
Brad
for
Little says you just can't throw
corporations.
money at it in this forum. You just can't throw money at it. You got to be fiscally responsible. But when a survey is done, it says Idaho is 48th in the nation with the lowest taxes, and then they say, well, the people from California are coming up here because of low taxes. Yes. Baloney. They're getting out of the California because of the 40 million people that are breathing the air down here. Right. I lived there. I was really happy to get rid of that 3-hour commute every day, and plus sharing the air with 40 million. You know, I saw Muhammad Ali though one time. He came out of McDonald's right down the street from the office, and this is when he was in great health, and the women were surrounding him. You know, there's a lot of benefits to working in Los Angeles. You know, he's signing autographs, and all the girls were giggling. He's a tall guy. He's like 6'8" or something. You know, he's really big. But the only point is that they're not moving here because of low taxes.
No.
And I've talked to some of the people that moved here, and we like low taxes. And I talked to a guy in Montana, and he says these people are buying land up in Montana, 40 acres, right? He says, great. They bring up their money, buy the 40 acres, but they're not working. They're retired, so they're not providing jobs. And you know, I'm trying to make a living here, so I can go out and buy gas to go hunting. I can't afford gas to go hunting because the wages are so low. See what I mean? And 44% of all the families in eastern Idaho, according to United Way, is at or below the federal poverty level. There's 13,000 people that are food stressed in Bannock County, and somebody says, well, don't say food stressed, say hungry, and they are. That's a lot of people. And there doesn't seem to be any recognition of those folks. And that's and I hope they'll register to vote, because really they need a voice.
You know what you need to do? You need to go down to the Metropolitan Health Spa. It used to be down on Arthur over by Pocatello High School.
Pocatello, now where Arthur is.
The food bank there at the church.
Yeah, you need
to no, we belong to the.
Well, you need to get down there and get them people registered. You know, because when they go in for the food, you know, there's a church there that helps them. That would be a good place for you to.
Another good place to register voters
right there.
Well, understand, right now, my thrust is to get people to know me, and I've done it through Facebook, and you're helping me through this program. Rochelle and I belong to the Rotary, and we go down to the food bank, and there's going to be one here. Stephen Weig is part of that. So we try and do that, and we load up bags and do that. So we do that. Rochelle, since Greg Anderson asked me to be part of the JCs, we've always been community service minded. Right. Me, I'd rather be in there tinkering with my electronics, you know.
Exactly.
But it provides a balance. When you're working in a computer business and you walk into the door and everybody's unhappy. Can you imagine that, having a job when everybody's unhappy because the machine that's there is not producing checks? And you're the only one. And
right.
You're providing. I showed the Garrett freight lines when I first joined, right? The machine they had out there was a 360 Model 30, 64K of memory, 3 mega disk drives, right? A cable this big, punch cards. And one Friday afternoon, the machine went down and it couldn't print checks. And there was me and another fella, and we were there, and these truck drivers were going, and it was opening day of hunting season.
Oh,
And they needed their checks or whatever, and they're pacing back and forth on the glass doors. And you can imagine it was me and another guy that were being pressured to get this machine working so that it would go. And that's where the interface comes in. And not only did we have to fix the machine, but we had to help the DP manager constantly understand, we'll get through, and this is what we're doing, yada, 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 and then he would go tell the CEO so they wouldn't throw out the IBM machine. But those guys rocking back and forth, and they were muscular guys.
Intimidating.
Yeah. Well, they motivated us to fix that machine. But see, that's the business,
Right.
And the thing is that when you go out, it's like when I explained, when I did financials, working with different people, I ask them the question, because I sold disability insurance, and I go up to the very wealthy areas, let's say up in the Satterfield area, very nice homes, and I asked the question, I said, do you know of anybody that's lost their job or got illness and lost their homes or was financial trouble, and because they couldn't work or an illness? None of them knew anybody. It was incredible. I said, really? You don't know anybody? Because I was selling that, But when I would go down into the lower income areas, when I say down, I mean lower income areas of rentals and apartments, and I asked that same question. Oh yeah, Jim, John, Jax, Bill, Mr. Smith, Mrs. Jones,
Right.
They all knew somebody. The point I'm trying to make there is that folks that are living in those nice places think that a lot of times they forget that they are very vulnerable, especially in their working years, and poor investments or whatever, working paycheck to paycheck. They could be financially strapped just like the folks that in the lower rental areas. And they don't think it's ever going to happen to them. But
Yeah.
I was in the business long enough, your chances of being disabled is greater than death. And if you don't have some sort of backup, either savings or a family or something, you can lose everything.
By the way, could you, we got 10 more minutes, but
Okay.
Give us the voting, the day to vote.
Okay.
And give us all that information about
Okay.
voting, and then I'm going to ask Steve for some comments too.
Okay.
All right?
Yes, sir. I hope I did okay.
You did well. You always do well.
I really appreciate you guys doing this. I mean, it's being on your last show, but hopefully if I get elected, I can find out what we can do about those franchise fees and bring it back to the community.
That would be nice. It'd take years to get back, but
Well, it's 45 cents, and the FCC authorized $5. I mean, there's a
Right.
pretty good window there to get at least a little
oh,
bit
you're
back.
right. That's right. It is. You're
Okay.
right.
Yeah, the early voting started on Monday.
Right.
Here in Bannock County, it's from 9 o'clock to 4:30.
4:30. Okay.
Just
Every
walk
day
Every day, Monday through Friday, until November 2nd.
until November 2nd. All right.
And then it's cut off at that point. So there's a heck of a window. In some of the counties where they restrict early voting, it starts October 23rd. But this one here, it's 141 North 6th Avenue.
Okay.
Okay, it's right across from the license plate place where you get license plates.
Right.
And just go in and do it. 2 minutes. I voted.
You voted. All right.
I did. And you know what?
I'll do mine tomorrow then.
You know what I did?
What'd you do?
I voted for me.
Oh, you voted for you.
did.
All right. Good
Did.
deal.
I knew a guy one time that lost for one vote, and he didn't vote for himself. And I said, that ain't never going to happen to me.
Right.
You know? But yeah, it's do that, because really, if the folks that work in a regular job, okay, and their employer won't give them off, right? Then if they wait between 5 and 8, they're going to see the lines. It's just the way it is. So the
Right.
unregistered voters are going to show up because somebody told them that the Democrats are going to take their guns, raise their taxes and that sort of thing. And that really, I'm still waiting for Obama to take my 30-06. It's out there rusting. He didn't take my guns.
You didn't take your
He
gun.
did
What?
not. He didn't. No.
Why?
I don't know. I think it's a myth. Yeah. By the way, that the number of people in the NRA. Oh, by the way, I got an F from the NRA.
An
I'm
F.
not surprised.
I got an F, and I didn't even fill out the survey. And I talked to Lance Colbert. He's running. He got a question mark. I said, how did you get a question mark? You were the head of the, Republican GOP party in Pocatello, in Bannock County. He says, well, I don't know. I filled out the form. I said, well, I didn't fill out the form. You got a question mark, and I got an F. So I've been F'd.
You've been effed.
I have been effed, yeah.
By the
I
way,
am so glad to see that the NRA is being tied to these Russian operatives and how they funnel money into the NRA.
$56 million.
Yes, I know.
wow.
It doesn't come from $25 subscriptions. And one of the things people have to understand, only 1 out of 20 gun owners are members of the subscribers, the $25 a year subscribers.
And that's good. It's coming here from Voz Latina at the last show. That you guys are
Yeah.
getting this information.
Well, yeah, I mean, and so, everybody thinks that, they speak for everybody. Well, there's, they're not. And there's as many unaffiliated and Democrats as there is Republicans. They were a little bit more that have weapons, guns, So really, it's not a lock on the Republican Party.
Okay, what about, I was going to ask you too to mention the people that want to register on the day of voting too.
Please don't do that. Go down and don't do that.
But if you have that information.
Well, it's there. It's out there. You can. I put it out there. You can register the same day, but people don't do that. And a lot of the people are like the guy that picks up his child and expects to go in there, whip in there, and be out in 2 or 3 minutes. It's not going to happen. Like I indicated, it's another form of. If you can motivate enough people, one of the 400,000 in Idaho, there's 800,000 registered. There's 400,000 that are not registered. If you can scare them into going down and registering on the same day, then what you do, it's another form of preventing people that are registered to go in and vote. And that's where the older people, because they vote they do early voting.
That's a good point. Yeah,
and during the day.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you're right.
Right. So youngsters and people that work for a living, and you don't expect to get in there very quickly and out. And it depends on the voting district, like out there in Aramo and places like that. But here in Pocatello, it could be aligned because just the proximity. So don't put it off. And in fact, I've been putting out.
Okay, is that the message you want to relate to the
register early, and vote absentee. And early voting closes at November 2nd.
Okay, good. Anything else you'd like to say? You've got, and then Steve, I'll give Steve the microphone.
Well, I did the fair for the 4 years. We had 37 volunteers. We've had 67 people. And by the way, the GOP party, they closed up on Thursday.
They did.
And so, yeah, there was nobody there, no talking signs. And we ran right to the end in there. And we had Jill there. We had Paulette Jordan showed up.
Okay, great.
Aaron Swisher was there. And other local legislators showed up. And if I missed somebody, but anyway, a lot of them, we invited them all, and they all had a good time. Some of those folks just enjoy the heck out of talking to Uncle Billy. And Uncle Billy's been a Republican since Abe Lincoln and his family. Okay.
Wow.
But it's a lot of fun.
All
and we
right.
had a lot of fun. But 1,000 people talked to us. And the reason we know that is because we've handed out 1,000 brochures, and the only way they would get one is if they stopped and talked to us.
Right.
Okay, and that's over that 9-day period. But we've done it for 4 years, and it's great. And we've registered, like I told you, voters.
Great. That sounds great. Okay, Steve, your turn. You got 4 minutes.
I really don't have much to say, but I do say that there are other issues on the ballot besides who should be our state
Okay,
candidate.
Proposition 1 is the horse racing. And,
Good.
And
Good
Ken
question.
Andrus down here is the head of the opposition. It's $175,000 that's being donated by 2 gaming companies. Okay? In other words, a gaming company is there, and there's $1 million. And I looked up how many racing tracks there are in Idaho. There's 9 of them. You know how many there are in Texas? 6.
Really?
Okay, that's right. And there's more horses in Idaho than there are people. So there's over 1.7 million horses here. And so whatever they're going to do as far as that goes, and I think even Brad Little says they support it. I think Butch supports it. Whatever, they're just machines, and you can regulate machines on what they do. But the gaming companies, one was out of Washington, one was up north. Okay, they're the ones that are putting the $175,000 to oppose this thing. And then the other one is Proposition 2. Okay. And I'll finish by telling you that I recently had a cousin that I mentioned.
Okay.
My cousin Steve.
The one that passed away?
Yes. And he worked for a fast food. He didn't have insurance all his life. Okay, a small business. I mean, it's just the way it is. He couldn't afford it.
Right.
And he got chest pains. So, and he never went to the doctor, even though he was 67. But you got to remember, even if you're over 65, you've got to have Medicare B, C, and D. Well,
right.
He couldn't afford that, and he didn't think about it. So he's always accustomed going into these walk-in places, in the shopping malls. And he did. He told them he had chest pains. They gave him antibiotics, right?
Okay.
And he went home. 2 days later, they found him in the bathroom floor, dead. He had a blood clot.
Blood clot. Wow.
So if he had been able to go to a hospital, they probably would have detected it. You know, and I had a guy from the GOP tell me that, oh, you just go down here to these walk-in places and you can have a baby for $450. And I said, well, what happens if the baby or the mother has complications? I says, is that place? But anyway.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Hey, that was good information. Hey, that was a good question too, Steve.
Yeah, I also believe
Proposition 2,
strongly that we
vote
should
for it, by the way.
expand
Okay.
Medicaid and Medicare here in Idaho.
Well, it's Medicaid. Yeah, it's for the low income, 61,000 people, and
There's
they can
no
afford
reason why any child in Idaho should have a problem that isn't covered.
it. Well,
I mean, we
33
have enough money for all the rest of this stuff. Those children are not capable of making a living or working a job and paying their insurance. Those kids need to be covered.
33 states have that Medicaid expansion.
The last hour of this show, we're going to have a finale. We're just going to
Okay.
say goodbye. I want to thank you for being here on
You
the show,
betcha.
our last show. Steve, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Just want to let you know that LEAD, Latino Economics and Development Center, was the one that donated the sign in back of us. And that's going to go to either another Mexican organization, or if they start up a new community access, well, it'll go there. But anyway, we want to thank our public for all of these years for being with us. La Voz Latina. Enrique Hank Gonzalez signs off.